Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mangushampaga. And of course, we're starting tonight's show with the sad news of the passing of Matthias Nsubuga, Secretary General of the Democratic Party and a former member of Parliament, who died this evening after being admitted to hospital yesterday after he suffered a stroke. Of course, more details will be coming out later, but our sympathies and condolences go to the family of Matthias Nsubuga and the Democratic Party and the political fraternity and the country at large. Tonight in studio, we'll be discussing two distinct issues. One is a recent opinion poll on citizens' perception on Uganda's governance was released with some very stark findings. That was done by Research World International in collaboration with the Uganda National NGO Forum. We'll be examining what the findings of that report, of that opinion poll are. What do Ugandans think about 7 months after we got a new government in Kisanja, Hakuna Mchezo, about politics, about governance, about socio-economic issues? We'll be discussing that. After that, we will switch the discussion and move to discuss issues concerning Tooro. The people of Tooro will be retreating to discuss their issues as other Ugandans and other people across the world retreat back home to enjoy Christmas. They'll begin with a discussion. How much do those retreats bring and how much can they impact the direction a community takes? We'll be discussing that. Let me introduce in studio tonight, starting with the Honorable Beatrice Kiraso. Your CV is very long, but always a pleasure for us to have you back in the studio. Very nice to have you once again.
Thank you.
Honorable Kiraso has been Deputy Secretary General at the East African Community Secretariat in charge of political affairs, political integration specifically. You worked with, you were a member of parliament representing Kabarole district many years ago. Mm-hmm. You also worked with the UN
Economic
Commission for Africa. Mm-hmm. Very nice to have you. Dr. Patrick Wakida is Executive Director of Research World International, and you were the lead researcher for this opinion poll, the latest opinion poll. Very nice to have you.
Thank you, Judge.
And Mr. Patrick Rubongoya. Patrick Rubongoya loves to introduce himself as a concerned citizen, a social commentator, but he's an architect by training. Very nice to have you.
Good evening, viewers.
Let's start with you, Dr. Patrick Wakida. Yes. You released this opinion poll, or maybe I should give each one of you an opportunity to say a word about the passing of Matthias Nsubuga. Did you serve with him in Parliament? No, you didn't.
No, I didn't serve with Matthias. He came after me, but I know him personally, and I'm very saddened. I've just learnt about his passing. May his soul rest in peace.
But Charles, I'm still coming to terms with the death of this gentleman. He's one of the finest you can have. Very sober, very focused. His death leaves a lot of gaps in this country at a time when we want people who are focused. Yeah.
And so Patrick?
Same to me here. All I can say is condolences. What else can I add?
Thank you. Patrick, you led the team that carried out the research. I'm wondering, from the previous researches you have done, what new this latest research brings to Ugandan analysts, commentators on political affairs, on social issues, on economic issues?
Thank you, Charles. You see, at Research World, we produce reports. And one of the commitments we've had is that every year we should be able to measure the socio-economic and politics of our country, and therefore guide the discussions around those major aspects. When we ask questions, we build questions from the current discussions. And today, the current discussions around the economy is around the politics of amendment of the Constitution, the continuation of the old administration. Those are the discussions. When you go to the media, when you go to the social media, you find this discussion very intense. So we begin, therefore, to develop themes to see what about those who are outside there? What are they thinking about these things? And therefore, we developed various themes. In this report, if you went through, you'll find that we measured the economy from the perspective of the person in a village. The sample space for this was that we had majority of the respondents are actually rural people. You have about 20-25% who are urban. The measure was to see how are they feeling the economy today. And compared to February, the same question was asked about their economy at their household level.
That was just before we went into the election of February 18th.
Yes, we asked the same question. If you look at the numbers, people today feel a pinch of an economy compared to how they were between the months of December and January last year.
What explains that?
Well, it's very hard to explain that, but you see, if you go in the village, the number of things you'll see, that a kilo of sugar has moved from 3,400 to 5,000. A kilo of rice has gone from 1,500, 2,000 to about 5,000. So there has been an increase in the prices of goods and services. But again, the other thing you can observe is that there has been intense drought. So food production has not been coming out of the villages. And the villagers now, majority of them are consuming in the same place where you buy your food. They are going to the stores to buy food. You get people with Uvera everywhere going to look for posho. They no longer have food. So all those has affected the way they live.
My big question there would be, they tell you that's what they feel, those are their perceptions, so what?
You see, perceptions come from them, but they are drivers. They are drivers of this country. This truck called Uganda is not moving without a driver.
Yes, if people have the perceptions that their lives are not better today than they were in February this year, does it drive them to put their leaders under pressure? Does it inform the way in which they vote? Does it inform, what does it do?
You see, a happy population will talk about things that make them happy. A population that is on the brink of suffering will always talk about that. Now, it's up to you, the leader here, to determine whether you want to see your population feel that way, the way they feel, or you want to drive them out of that suffering. And that's why they elect you. So you want to feel, if elections were held today, would they change the way they would vote? I don't know.
Would they? You've done researches before before and after every election. Has it informed the way people vote?
What is very critical is that after these elections, you have everything in negative. You've had an election for which leadership was put in place, but what you feel from the population is really negative. Because I did not feel that there is something positive that is coming from the population. In the previous surveys, by the way, you could ask somebody, how is your economy? And somebody says, I see myself moving in a good direction. Now you're asking people, and people are saying, we don't know. We don't know whether it will improve, but the situation today is not very good.
Are they resigned to their fate? Are they doing anything about this?
No, we did not measure that.
Okay. You find some of your key insights into the findings of the opinion poll. Majority of the respondents were of the view that the socio-economic and conditions of living in their country are currently very bad. A relatively high figure was pessimistic about the possibility of an improved situation. While government managed to control the inflationary levels in the aftermath of the February 2016 elections, through the Bank of Uganda and different financial institutions, the poll results suggest that this did not have any direct positive impact on the ordinary Ugandan. Honorable, you represented people of Kabarole in Parliament. You've been at the highest levels of leadership and shaping policy. How do opinion polls, like the one Research World has produced, impact on the policy direction of a government or an institution like the one you serve at the East African Community or even the UN Economic Forum to change, or are leaders responsive?
Well, Charles, what I can say is that for every product, there has to be a consumer.
Yeah.
So probably Patrick, could enlighten us a little more on who the consumer is for such reports. Wonderful reports, very good statistics. Looking at perceptions, although I prefer reports that look at facts and figures, right? But I want to believe that these perceptions will match the facts and figures if you go to the ground. But who is the consumer of this product? Because that would then answer the moderator's question of whether the findings of such research inform policy direction, whether findings of such research help the leaders at any level to change or to do things differently. Do they ever get to know about these findings? Who is the consumer of this product? Wonderful product.
Yes. I think, Beatrice, what we do normally for us is we put out a product. We even put it on our website. We launch it in the public. And we say, if you're a civil society member, use this for advocates to get things for your people. If you're a member of parliament, this is the state of our population. So we take away the deceit. You see, I have listened to people talk about the per capita income. I have listened to people talk about the middle income levels. Now, from an economic perspective, I myself rejected that notion that by 2017, you can have Uganda in the middle income level.
I thought the target is 2020.
The first statement mentioned by politicians was 2017. They have adjusted it to 2020. Now, when you look at these numbers, it conforms to what I have always said, that Uganda's gross domestic product and per capita income is so low to suggest that in a spate of 4 years, you will have reached the middle income level. I'll give you some numbers and you'll be surprised that if today our per capita income is, say, 600, we need to have reached 900 US dollars per capita income to talk about low middle income levels. Now, there is nothing we can do now to drive us at a fast speed to acquire that, especially when you look at these numbers. And I was discussing this with a friend of mine. You have a question to Ugandans. Can you please tell us your level of incomes? In people, you give the different ranges of income. And you say between 27 and 405,000 shillings as your income. And there you have a percentage of 54%, majority of Ugandans, with an income of less than 1 million. That tells you that they are poor, because 1 million shilling equals to about 320 US dollars. That's the majority. But remember, to be in the middle income, you must have attained 900 and above.
It's actually $1,030.
Yes, about that. So you are dealing with a population which is poor, and the method that my government and the World Bank and the IMF is using is very defective. They are rooted within the Keynesian theories,
Exactly.
which is very, very wrong. That you can add all the incomes of everybody, divide it by the total population, and get the level of growth the population is projected. But remember, in this country, the number of people who are working, the people who are producing, is so small.
Yeah, production versus productivity.
Yes, and then the people, you ask yourself, therefore, few people are working, paying taxes for the majority of Ugandans. So you cannot use that measure. The best measure for such a country like this of mine is what we call the LSM, the Living Standard Measure, where I will come to your house, like we did, When I come to your house, I will be looking at what do you have.
But Patrick, my question would be, is there absence of that data? If you look at the district poverty map
Yes.
that the Uganda Bureau of Statistics produces regularly, you look at a lot of information, both on the website of the Uganda Bureau of Statistics and in printed reports. The data is available.
Yes.
The facts exist. The question is, if Research World and NGO Forum add another report for people to read, like Honorable Kiraso asked, who is your consumer? What does it mean? Before that, let me just bring in Patrick. Yes.
You can come in. Here, I was here a few days ago, and I did raise a concern regarding the seemingly lack of cooperation between NGOs and governments.
Yeah.
If you look at Oxfam, you look at USAID, you look at CARE International, you look at all these are NGOs, but they have a good working relationship with the government. The trouble here, and you ask who is your consumer, is NGOs, you know, I think are just doing, it's a form of employment now, more than a service, as it were. And for that matter, you hear things like we publish information and we put it out there. Whoever wants to use it should use it. That shouldn't be the case. And I think more than, you know, harping the problems, we need to go behind the issues and begin asking ourselves, what solutions can we craft? And that is what leadership is all about. Finding answers and solutions to problems. And perhaps let me mention, it is everybody's quest to improve themselves. That's why we go to work every day. And that happens at different levels. At an individual level, at a family level, at a society level, and at a national level. And the aggregate of those efforts is what, you know, brings about the development that we all yearn for. And we are scattered. The NGO world is not anywhere talking to government in the way it should. You find this kind of statistics just lying idle. It is becoming routine. We are not doing things with proper reasons behind what we are doing.
Okay, if you could... yes.
And I think that's what we should be finding, trying to answer. Why? Like, let me frame the question a bit differently. Do you know of any counterpart government agency that goes out to look for this information?
I can actually assure you that this information is consumed. I went to a website with our chief statisticians, and by yesterday, close to 15,000 people had downloaded that report. Now, high likely, it's not going to be in the video. But let me also clarify on this. You see, you have a government that is doing more politics. And every time they will see this, they will see it in the eyes of politics. I listened to one very close friend of mine saying, no, those people should have measured.
A politician?
Yes. He said those people should have measured the purchasing power of people rather than how they feel of purchasing. Now, that explains that they are more interested in playing politics than creating a welfare population, a population that is better off. Because, let me tell you, in this report, we were very categorical. We wanted first off to establish of the household, of the 2,250 households that we invested, how many of them would able to tell us that they have a certain level of income.
Okay.
That's the purchasing power.
I'm afraid we need to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, maybe we'll ask the question of, did they trust you? Did they tell you the truth? Or they lied to you and thought maybe you're coming from intelligence and whatever your findings were. But we'll come back to that after a short commercial break. We'll be right back. You're still watching The Fourth Estate, and we started a discussion with citizens' perception on Uganda's governance, a new opinion poll released by Research World International during the week. And the big question is, the report is available, so what? Who is the consumer of this information? And the other question will be, does anybody care? Patrick, let me come back to you. Is it just a question of NGOs or researchers to get people to use information that is available, or people who need that information? If there's a word in English called needers of information, I don't think it's correct. Should look for it.
I think,
and if it's packaged and you find it here, the business is yours to use it or not use it.
I think Honorable Beatrice's question was instructive. She did ask whether the policy formulators take advantage of such reports. And I think before such a report is generated, it should have that idea in mind that this information is going to feed into this useful, pipeline, at the end of which will be, making strides beyond the problems that are enlisted in there. And that's where I find a problem. That disjoint, if it's not addressed, there are many. You often hear Uganda famed for having good policies, but gathering dust. For how long are we going to stop at having good knowledge? And knowledge that is not applied to, good use, in my view, is no knowledge. You cannot go out, gather all this knowledge for the sake of gathering knowledge. It should be for purposes of solving a problem or being applied to some level of good use.
Patrick, someone was commenting about another document that was released recently. No, the chaotic one, the National Youth Policy that ended in chaos just behind us here the other day. And someone was saying the only people who benefit out of this are the guys on Nkuruma Road and Nasa Road who do the printing. Otherwise, do you feel frustrated sometimes that you're churning out all these reports, making sure every year you're producing at least 2 opinion polls that no one actually pays attention to?
No, actually I don't. You see, as a creator of knowledge, I remember when I was doing my doctorate, my professor emphasized, he said that create knowledge, some people will use it, and when they use it, they will change the environment in which they live. So for us, we go ahead and produce it. And I'm very certain, by the way, that people use this information. Even those who openly oppose it, by the time they put back the phone, they will say, can you please send us that report? So they use it. By the way, opinion polls sometimes say bitter truth. It is equivalent to somebody telling that you have a bad breath. When you leave that person, you immediately go and start brushing. But he has told you, and you get angry and say, how can this guy tell me that? But as soon as you leave that person and move out, you go to the bathroom and you begin brushing. So people use these numbers. They compare these numbers to the reality. Now tell me, Charles, we are 4 here. If we are to assess
I'm
the way
sorry,
we live,
Patrick, I will ask. Yes. Maybe you need to conduct another research to evaluate your efforts. As to whether, because when you say in passing, I think people use it. What would be your desire? And I'm sorry
you see, I don't want you, Patrick, to look at this report in isolation, or one question in isolation. This report has got various themes, and it's used by the various people for advocacy purposes and for planning purposes. The civil society will use this because they want to measure. For example, for about a year, their efforts was around reforms within the electoral system. Let's have age limit. Let's have term limit restored. It pays for them to understand to what extent did our effort make strides. They are able to see that. Now, if they have another thematic area they want to engage in, they are able to say, okay, we want to engage in ensuring that the Constitution is not tampered with.
If you might,
what are the public perception around this
Just
issue?
a small interjection. I was actually using your own words.
Yeah.
you did mention that the government is using a different measurement, and this is at variance with what government is using.
Have you ever heard of the word politics economics?
Exactly.
Now, politics economics is the twist of numbers to fit the political situation.
And that's why I'm asking, are these findings really being used by government? Because that frustration that you're venting out against this, because you cannot have this kind of picture, black as it is, and the government is painting a white one, which is seemingly at variance with yours, and you're saying they are using your information. And by the way, I have followed your findings. Every time you release a report,
Yes.
I follow, I read.
Yes.
And there are words that I follow and get disturbed. Are we talking to each other? I don't understand why we seemingly should appear like we are, you know, different parties when we should be feeding into each other.
Wouldn't someone say that that is actually inevitable? That if government wants to impress it upon you and say, by 2020, we'll be a lower middle income country where on average every Ugandan will be earning $1,030 per annum, and wants to, I mean, it's trying to impress it upon you. If someone brings other statistic and says, wait a minute, that's a big joke, will government take that up? Even if you're trying to speak to each other, will they actually speak to each other?
Then they can't be talking to each other, and that's where my frustration is.
Okay, I'm afraid we need to move on.
Charles, what we do is we accelerate that debate.
Okay. Fair enough.
And as you debate, you begin to find a common ground.
Okay.
And that's what we do.
Let me ask my next question and then we'll move on to another issue. A relatively low number were somewhat interested in public affairs. 31%, while a slightly higher number engaged in political discussions with friends and family. 33%.
Yes, whenever they met.
This is quite telling on the levels of civic competence and has implications for active citizenship and development. Who are we talking to?
You know, Charles, I asked my question and the discussion that has been going on, I don't think my question has been answered, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
This report is very good. As Patrick says, it has thematic,
Or you're trying to be nice to Patrick?
areas. That too. I think it's good to be nice to him.
Yes.
But it's a good report. My frustration is that
Who is going to use it?
I don't know whether this will be used, because he himself says there's politicization of the economics.
Yes.
And that cannot take us anywhere. So anyway, people discuss in bars, people discuss in their own sitting rooms, but when they come to public, these things do not come out.
Yeah.
That cannot help us. But the first aspect that you read shows that there is some kind of giving up, some kind of hopelessness. And I know many people in Uganda today feel like there's a group of people there who are doing their thing, and they have resigned to just watching and seeing where fate takes them. I don't know for how long this is going to continue and what effect it will have. But when you talk of the middle income status by a certain year, 2020, and according to Patrick, you give figures that are not supported by all the other variables. I'm an economist. In economics, unfortunately, you say holding all the other factors constant. It's defective.
It's very defective.
Because if you are talking about a growing economy, a growing population, a growing everything has to be taken into consideration. Everything is dynamic. So you cannot say holding everything else constant. It means you're holding population growth constant. It can never be constant.
It can't.
It means you can go on and on and on and on. So, good report, good figures on the perception.
Let's have Patrick have his the last word on his report, and then we'll switch the discussion.
I don't want him to feel like he's on spot.
I think what is very interesting, actually, is that it's good to produce knowledge.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And it's upon those that can use that report. There are many people, by the way, that can use this report. I'll give you one of the stark findings I found in this. When we asked people that in the absence of the two dominant leaders in this country, who would you vote for president? In the absence of Dr. Kizza Besigye and Mr. Museveni. And you have a population of about 50%.
Who saying they don't know?
They don't know.
Because they don't know me, for example.
They don't know Chiraso because the whole space has been occupied
by the two.
By the two.
Thank you.
That's very dangerous for the population. Because by now, we should be talking about leaders within FDC, leaders within NRM, that in the absence of the other, people are able to immediately say, I would vote this one. Exactly. That's how countries move. In South Africa, by the time Mr. Mandela was leaving, people were sure that Zuma would be president. And so in these other countries. But in Uganda today, God forbid, if there is anything that happened, we would be struggling to find for succession. And this is not only happening, and this is not only happening. Is that
necessarily a bad thing?
It is absolutely stupid circumstance to be in. Because there is one thing which is a constant. And you know the constant is that it doesn't change. That at a given time, how long you stay, this will happen.
Well, that will take us deeper into a debate. Yes. If you ask the British 5 months ago, they had no idea that Theresa May would be their prime minister.
Exactly, because they had a variety of leaders. It was easy.
Any of them could.
Any of them could.
Okay, I think that settles it. We need to switch this discussion and retreat to Tooro and discuss the Tooro People's Conference, 22nd and 23rd, Patrick? Yep. Preparing for this show, I looked through the first major, what I would call tribal community retreat to discuss was Kachoke Madit of the Acholi. The Baganda have been having annual retreats. Taba Miruka, I think that's what it's called. Yeah. One of the most consistent community groups is the Banyachigezi. They've been holding, especially those living in the diaspora, have been holding regular retreats and discussions about their community. Recently, they decided to bring them home, so they've been holding them in Chigezi sub-region. Why are you, as Tooro, also retreating to have a discussion?
Well, definitely that is an indicator that there's a gap that we're trying to address. In the quest of arranging and putting a house in order. And that is, I think, in order for any group of persons to seek to organize themselves for their advancement. In Tooro particularly, we have, I think, been in a disarray. Traditionally, we had a king, but unfortunately, because of the historical happenings, our system was interfered with, and we are orphaned for a while, and our king was brought back, and unfortunately, he passed away, left us a young king who is still finding his level and probably putting systems in place, and that has tended to create a gap and put us in disarray, because we are a people who knew a certain form of organization, and it might happen in our subconscious, but I think it is now raising a question. We cannot remain the way we are. What should we do?
Which way are you that you're trying to address?
We are a people undefined. And leadership is key. So we are trying to find our level and see, apart from meeting and greeting each other, and I think that is not enough to appear like we are passers-by every time we meet. We must be a community in the true sense of the word. And so we are trying to find our footing to reorganize ourselves under the circumstances.
Honorable Kiraso, let me turn to you. You're putting, can you explain what is it exactly that you're trying to do with this?
With the Tooro
the
People's
Tooro.
Conference.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Charles, because it's very important that our listenership, is that the right word?
Viewers.
The viewers,
Yes.
not the listeners, they do come to appreciate and to know that Tooro, the bigger Tooro, made up of 7 districts, we are coming together at the leadership level. When I talk about leadership, we're talking about the cultural leadership, the political leadership, the religious leadership, and we have a forum of elders, and of course the youth. A few people came together and put their heads together, discovered that compartmentalization will not help us to move forward to the next level. And that if we came together, these different stakeholders that I've talked about, including the common people, including the professionals in different fields, if we came together and started thinking collectively, then we would discover our strengths as a region of Tooro. We would look at areas where we have a comparative advantage and focus on them. That would help us to uplift the youth and, you know, look at a common destiny for the Tooro region.
I have a few more questions for you, but we'll come into that after a short commercial break because I think we need to, we'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back this last segment of the Fourth Estate. I needed to explain the absence of Honour Peter Ekomoloit. He was absent last weekend. He's absent again this weekend. He's still in Asalatap village. I'm not sure he'll be coming back to Kampala for until after Christmas. But he is watching the show and following closely. Asalatap is in Namuria district in Teso sub-region. But we're discussing the Tooro People's Conference, a retreat of the people of Tooro to discuss matters that affect them. Honorable Kiraso, my big question to you would be, in a fast globalizing world, in a small country called Uganda of only 35 million people, which is aspiring to be part of a bigger entity called the East African Community, now at 6 member countries, why would a community think that the only way to change its fortunes, to assess its strength, its weaknesses, its threats, is to go back and huddle together?
Yeah, because when you're together, even as a smaller community, then you are able to benefit from the bigger entity better.
Shouldn't the aspiration be to join in and...
it doesn't stop you from joining in, but it's better when you join in when you are organized as a smaller community than if you joined in as individuals. And as I've said, Charles, this forum has been put together following realization that as Tooro, the bigger Tooro region, we are doing our business in a disjointed manner. I think Patrick has already said that. I call it compartmentalizing. You find the religious leaders are doing their thing. The traditional leaders or the cultural leaders, the kingdom is doing its thing. There are elders, the elders forum, they're also doing the politicians, and so on and so forth. So if these people can come together, it means therefore that everybody else can rally behind or can be rallied behind them, so that we position ourselves better as a people to benefit from that bigger community that you're talking about.
If the Tooro retreat to have a discussion, the Madi retreats to have a discussion, if you go like to Karamoja, the Matheniko, the Pokot, everybody will retreat to have a discussion. What kind of country do we have at the end of the day?
It's already like that, Charles, and you're not going to change
So
it.
why not elevate that discussion?
Actually, I'm glad that, and it's not about Tooro who are going to have a discussion. It's the people of Tooro. And the people of Tooro, we have Bachiga in there, we have the Bakonzo, we have the Bamba, we have the Batagwenda, you can name them. We are coming together to say, fine, we are different tribes, but we don't need to be isolated from each other. There are many things we can do together. Actually, I wish that every sub-region within Uganda or region could go and have a discussion. Then, therefore, even on the economic scene, would find something where each region has got a comparative advantage. They go back and specialize in that thing.
Why not bring those efforts to a national level and say, as a country, we are a broken country. We need to sit and have a discussion on where we are going as the people of Uganda. Why? Because there have been those calls to say, bring those kinds of ideas to a national dialogue that shapes the direction of where the country is supposed to be going.
Where is that dialogue? Where is the dialogue?
I mean, if you and your friends retreat to have that discussion in Fort Portal,
Yes.
instead of bringing those ideas to a national to national table.
Where is the national dialogue?
That's where I'm asking you to be taking your leadership.
Okay, for us, let's retreat, go and formulate our agenda and have our program, and you'll advise us. When there is a national dialogue, we'll come to the national dialogue when we are more organized.
Patrick,
But you see,
Dr. Okida,
yes,
is there a problem of people saying, for us, whether you are as a region or a specific community, is there a problem with that?
No, I think it's good that people are able to go back to where they come from and talk about all these things that affect them. They talk about their children, they talk about their older people, they talk about their history. It's just so good, because then it builds in them to understand where they are coming from, where they are, and where they want to move as the people of Tooro. So it's a good thing. I would be very happy for my smaller tribe out there if they called something like that. Because then we are able to, I come from a minority tribe of 621,000 people. And you know, we are the only people with the Republic of Chibuko, where we do most of these things by ourselves. We build our own police stations, and sometimes we find fuel for our police people. If they could ever do that, because then you all sit as people, you are able to say, we have discovered, we have a bigger number of our children who have finished university, they have no job. Then you create an advocacy group, like Honorable Kiraso, to go and start to do just that. You know? So it's a good thing. Okay. And I really applaud them.
Actually,
sometimes it's even used.
We are going beyond advocacy.
Yes.
What we are going to discuss in this forum, in this Tooro People's Conference, is practical ways of addressing that example that you brought. Because we know that there are children out there, children of the soil of Tooro, who are very brilliant, but whose parents are not able to push them to the next level.
That doesn't take away my question. Shouldn't those be issues that are brought to a national discussion? Because you're talking about education. Uwezo Ataweza released a report on Friday. Are our children learning? The 6th in a series. And the results are the same. The findings are the same. There is no learning taking place when children go to school. And that doesn't talk about the many pupils who are even dropping out of school, because the dropout rate is, I think, at 68% at the moment. 68% of children who enter primary 1 do not exit primary 7. I'm told I have some callers. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from? Keep your question or comment brief.
Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
My name is Simon.
Yes, Simon.
And thanks for the discussion this evening.
Yes, please.
One about the statistics that Mr. Tofuda produced.
Mr. Wakida?
Yes, Okida, yes.
Yeah.
One, we are living in an information age.
Mm.
And therefore, it was unfortunate for Honorable Kiraso there to kind of say who are the consumers of this information.
Mm.
We are living in an information age where we have got what we call think tanks. We've got information on Google and so forth. So the researcher there provides an opportunity for any person who is responsible, who takes the decision, to base their decision on research. We have got more than 400 parliamentarians, each of whom is entitled to, is supposed to have a researcher. They do not have such researchers.
Mm.
So in taking certain decisions for the development of the country, such a report and findings are important for access.
Yes,
and,
please.
Also the gentleman on your left,
Mm.
or in the extreme left, the questions were not very interesting.
They're not very clear.
Other than trying to poke, raising real issues, whether the information is credible, was asking pedestrian questions. I thought he should be more focused in his questions.
Okay.
The one about the second opinion is about the hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, about the Tooro meeting.
Yes.
I like the submission by Madame Kiraso, because we are not, from independence, we are not yet a nation. We had about 14 nations.
Mm. Oh, sorry, Simon. We lost Simon there. He was talking about nation states. Hello? Simon, if you can, you try and call us back. Hello? Hello? Are you there? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, I'm Isaac from Welgere.
Isaac.
Yes, and I would like to commend the people of Tooro for organizing that reunion.
Mm.
Secondly, a small comment about the leadership in Uganda is that I think the cultural leaders have got it all wrong, because we are governed by the constitution and we have political leaders who take most responsibility. But the cultural leaders seem to be confused to try to also capture that power, which they are not given in the constitution. Like this point of King of Tooro, is he the King of Tooro or he's the King of Batoro? And that question confused. Like someone can say, I'm King of, let's say, Uganda.
Okay.
That's different from being a King of Uganda.
Okay. I think that will be responded to. We have another caller. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Your name and where you're calling from. Keep your question or comment brief.
My name is Mike.
Michael.
Yes, I'm calling from Kampala.
Yes, Michael.
Yes, I think Uganda found us existent. The Tooro were there, the Baganda were there, the Sams were there. So there's no problem us organizing ourselves better. We can move forward as Batoro, move forward better as Acholi. If Uganda is not taking the vehicle, Uganda is not moving. So better we go and organize ourselves like that.
Okay.
For the case of Patrick, thanks for a job well done. But my friend, if Uganda, we do research and just throw it down. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. We have another caller. Hello? 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 Yes, sir?
Yes, how are you?
Good, sir. Your name, sir?
My name is Emmanuel from Dinda.
Emmanuel, yes, go ahead.
I am following the discussion closely, and I would like to still contribute to what Patrick said.
Yes.
I think there is no problem in people who are made up with the same geographical confinement to meet and say that our issues, let's discuss them. But also for the doctor researcher, how do you make your information useful to the consumer who you believe needs it but is not acting like they need it? How can you cooperate with them? Help them understand that actually they need your information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Do you have another caller? Hello? Hello? Is there a caller? Hello?
Hello,
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm Ronald from Infinda.
Ronald?
Yes,
Yes, go ahead.
I for one would like to agree with you on Bisha. Why are we still discussing politics on tribal islands? I think it's one of the biggest problems. And one of the biggest areas that Islam Muslim has done is dividing into smaller and smaller units. Now, when people start retreating back into smaller subgroups to discuss issues that clearly affect the whole country, solving the issue, it's creating problems that should be discussed on a national level.
Thank you, Ronald. I think we need to bring this discussion back to studio because we have little time to get out of here. Let me start at the extreme end. Patrick Rubongoya. I have two Patricks in studio, so people need to be able to distinguish between the two of them. Ronald is asking the question I've been asking. Why don't you start from there? Most of the others made comments.
I think I will start with this report. I think the gentleman didn't understand where we are coming from.
Yes.
One, this report is raising fundamentally governance issues, things to do with improvement of the leadership of our country, things that would seemingly be very important in informing our policies and governance issues for us to get out of these problems that the report points out. And of course, knowledge is important. Living and swimming in the information age per se is not enough. You must partake of that information to make good use of it. And that is where the frustration is coming in, especially if these findings are contradicting government's position. Especially if we hear that there are very good policies out there, but the policies are not being implemented. So we are not, just to commend him, I've commended him for the previous reports, the Twaweza reports. When are we going to utilize them to stop the problems that, you know, the findings point out for us? And that's where the frustration is coming from. And secondly, maybe to throw light on the programs and what is going to be discussed would help people to understand that we are not just being parochial and limited to our tribe. One, we are talking about Tooro region and the people there are in. We are not limiting ourselves to Batoro. Key things to discuss is the issue of agriculture, our agriculture potential, our problems of land fragmentation. We're going to talk about the unemployment and how we can encourage the youth to engage in meaningful agriculture. We are seeking views. We have a platform where people bring their views. We are debating. And all people who are interested in that region are contributing ideas. And it is these ideas we are going to arrange in an organized form to see how we can improve our area.
Patrick, you're coming, this conference is coming at a time when the region has been restive. There's been a lot of controversy coming out of that area. If you talk about the situation, for example, in Kasese, how do you manage to avoid, how do you avoid that overshadowing the otherwise possible noble intentions that you have in having a discussion without it being looked at as another kind of political arrangement?
You know, we are that transparent. What we are going to discuss is not, you know, secret, is not political, and is noble and desired or desirable. And we actually think this is only the beginning. The Banyachigezi have been meeting for ages, you mentioned. The Bagandas have been meeting for ages. And it all depends on the kind of leadership and their focus. If you wanted to turn even the Kasese issue into a good thing, I can assure you, you can. If you want to use it for a wrong reason, you will. And so I think the two are not comparable. It depends on where the leadership is focused towards. And like, by the way, Honorable Kiraso happens to be the spokesperson of our arrangement. She has alluded to the fact that we are not looking at Tooro per se. Everybody who is interested in the advancement of that area. And that is the only way, in an organized manner, we can put our case to the national level.
Charles, can I
yeah, because we have about 2 minutes to get out of here.
Yeah.
So.
Can I add something on the Kasese issue? We won't talk about Kasese because it's a subject of national security. But I want to say that this conference has been organized over a period of time, even before the incident in Kasese took place. But Patrick talked about transparency. We have one of the highest people in the security agencies in the country addressing the conference on security matters in the sub-region. So it's
catered for.
It's a good opportunity.
How are the political leaders, especially at the national level, receiving your arrangement?
They are part of it. Oh, you mean?
At the national level, how are people on the outside looking at what you're preparing?
We have actually not asked them because this is something for the people of Tooro. We have said, let's come together, look at the challenges, and find ways and means of how to address them.
What next?
So we don't need permission from the national level.
No. I'm looking at. I was asking about their perceptions, not whether you're getting permission from them or not.
We've not.
You will only get them interested if you begin veering off.
Okay. When I invite you here
another time. This is complementary.
Yes, and ask you the question. You had a meeting, a grand meeting. I don't know what a grand meeting what the local word for the grand meeting is. The Baganda call it Tawameruka. They actually called it Kachokema Dit. I don't know what the Batoro in Tooro you're calling it. If there is a name, there is a word for it. But if I invite you back here, or you're appearing on another interview 1 year later, what is it you expect to get out of this meeting next week? Is it next week or this week? That you can bank on and say, we had a discussion, this is what we have, and this is where we're headed.
The expected output?
Yes.
Well, one, we want to look at the different areas, like Patrick said. How are we going to deal with land issues? How are we going to deal with our youth? How are we going to deal with the disunity that has been, going on between the different stakeholders? And we intend to have continuous dialogue under the leadership of committees that will be set up for the different segments of what we're going to discuss. The Tooro People's Conference will not be a one-off. It's not a 2016 event. This is the Pioneer Conference. It's going to be annual. So every year we'll have an opportunity to go back on the drawing board and assess the progress of how we are moving and if what we've promised to do is what we are doing.
Our time is out. We need to get out of here. Patrick,
yes.
You had people commenting on your opinion poll.
Yeah.
So you'll have the last word.
I think the critical thing I heard people say is to do with how do you disseminate this information. On Tuesday, we had a press conference. You had politicians. You had people from civil society. But above all, if you actually want to have this report, it is live there on our website. We'll put it there for everybody to use. Just go and look for it. Research word int, you'll find the reports there. And all the reports we produced over years. Now, it's up to you to see which part of the report you want to use. Because, like I said, this report has got several themes. There are politics, there are economics, there are social, all of them we measured. So it's up to you to see what. Our
time is out. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much, Patrick, for making time for the show. Thank you very much, Patrick, for making time for the show. And thank you very much, Honorable Beatrice Kiraso, for making time for the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to you all our viewers for joining us tonight. I think we'll not be able to have another show before Christmas because next Sunday will be Christmas Day. So even if we have a show on Christmas Day, it will be after, in the night after Christmas. So we'll take advantage to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And thank you very much to the team that stays up late to deliver the show to you, the production crew that brings this show to you. And thank you very much to you all, especially those of you who called in to share your views and opinions with us. People continue to give me feedback and say you try to call and you can't make it. We can only take a limited number of phone calls and the lines get sometimes crowded. But we keep an active social media, Twitter, Facebook are active. The debate can continue and go on and on. From me, it's a good night.